All right, traders, TG Watkins here. Let's make sure we got everything up and running for you guys. And we live over on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully, you guys doing well. Nick, I see that you've got a couple comments already. Way to be first in line. Good job. Anyway, today is FOMC day, so it's probably going to be kind of snoozy until that happens. And they call that the monster truck rally because who knows what's going to happen. Could be a big deal and a big day. Thanks, Marzo. Looks like we're good to go. And yeah, so we're just kind of sitting tight, waiting for FOMC, and we're going to see what they come out as far as interest rates and what kind of guidance guidance that Jerome Powell has, and if they're going to be hawkish or dovish, and kind of the trajectory for our economy. So that's going to be very interesting to see. All right, as we get into this, remember, if you guys are new to me, check me out on Facebook and YouTube. You come over to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and that's where you can get into the Moxie Indicator Mastery, which is our trading room, $7 for 30 days. Come in, check it out. I do a pretty good service for the subscribers here. In fact, I'll show you a couple things that I've been talking about with them. And yeah, that was pretty accurate. So I think the first thing we'll probably start with is FP. Nick, I see you were kind of talking about that too, as far as Gush and Drippy, the leveraged ETFs of that. So let me get into that real quick, and then right over here, what we've been looking at, and I've been saying, I think early last week to the Moxie subscribers. I need to get one more thing up and running. I was telling them, I said, hey, I know that USO has been up quite a bit, and even XOP was up also, and had a pretty good move. But then I said, this last bounce right here, it was appropriate in the fact that it bounced off of the daily 21, but there really was no setup here on the hourly chart, and that was the biggest thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know it's up, but that just was, it was an awkward situation here on the hourly Moxie indicator. And I said, I just don't know how much further this thing is going to go for a few reasons. And I said, honestly, I would not be chasing it around here. And that's why I put this line on here, because that was a mark that I could put up and say, hey, this is when I started talking about it. This was at that level, and I said we should chase this higher. And sure enough, after a few days of back and forth choppiness up here, boom, we've got that breakdown. And I think that's lasted about 3 days. Yep, about 3 days. We're on our 4th day. And if you can see this, a couple things. Notice how price was trying to go up here, but notice how the Moxie just wasn't doing much. It was very kind of dead, weak, below zero, not really giving us much of a signal to the upside, if anything, to the downside. And then here on the hourly chart, you can see that the Moxie indicator was also kind of just not looking great. It's very choppy. You could see the same thing with the Moxie price triggers: red, green, red, green, red, green. And then the last one was red. So you go in the direction of the last one, as most signals. And then also just that price was very far away, 50, and it was also running up into resistance up here. And so we finally got that breakdown a little bit. Now, I'm not sure if I would be short something like XOP over on a grander scale, like, oh, I think this is the end of the move, and short it because we're going back down. Yeah, I don't know about that. This kind of looks like this could be the beginning of a next new trend to the upside, but it just ran into some resistance, prior highs, which is pretty natural. Nobody wants to be the first whack-a-mole to stick their head up here and say, oh yeah, I'm going to go buy a new high, right up into these previous highs. And so yeah, that's a risky place to kind of go long. And plus, it had a really good already. I mean, that's been a solid several weeks that this thing had been moving up like that, and now is not the time to get long on something in this position. So we wait for it to pull back, and then we see if this pullback will find support and can move up over time after that. We'll just have to see if that works. You can see kind of here pull back, but it did eventually go up, and you can see we're in an uptrend in this case, and we might be at the beginning of a new uptrend on something like this too. We just have to wait for the pullback to kind of finish up and through with that. All right, so as always, anybody in the Moxie room or Facebook and YouTube, feel free to drop a line. Let me know what kind of questions you guys have, and I can dive into that as well. And then let's see, Nick, as far as looking at Tilray, those things were pretty quick. I'll show you the one easy thing that told me to not go long on Tilray last week. It's right here. You see how price went from that lower 30 ATR to the upper third ATR on the weekly time frame. That was a big move. That's exactly where it went. And that had already done the whole thing. That already crossed the gamut. Like, you got to think about the freeway, like a highway, and you just ran from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway. What are you going to do when you get there? Well, you're probably going to rest because you're tired. You just ran across like 6 or 10 or 8 lanes, depending on if you're in LA or else, but that's a big freeway to cross. And on a weekly basis, that was a pretty good run. Just means, hey, probably not going to go too much further after that, and it's going to need to chill out. And that's exactly what happened. So you can come over here and you can see, what did we get? Notice we had the Moxie price trigger right there. Boom. Right on cue, right? Look at that. Right there. One day before this thing finally broke down, that's when you got the Moxie price trigger to the downside. So pretty great. And you can even see that on that pullback, you can see the Moxie price trigger right on cue right there. And then we got one more little bounce, and that was about it. And then this thing needed to pull back. And then remember, they travel in packs and bring their friends. So, you look at the like CGC and what it do. These things had pretty big moves, but this is not the place to go long. And usually after something like this, they're going to pull back hard. And in fact, you guys know my 50, 250 maneuver. So what did it do? It ran right up into the 200 after going parabolic, outside of that third ATR. And now look, it broke down between the hourly 50 and it's down. So, you look at those and say, okay, it's not going to keep going up if CGC and then if like Cron are also, like CRON, there we go, fat fingers this morning. Yeah, you can see that these things also got really extended right up in there, really extended. And now they're pulling back. So yeah, they're just not going to go do these things by themselves. They're going to travel in packs and bring their friends. Why after these things kind of got overbought, extended, all of them out here, they're just kind of done. They're just toast. They're just not going to be the time to really get up and go through there. So let's see what else you got. Sats. What did I hit? Try it again. Sats. SATA. S. All right. Well, volume seems a little weird. Yes, overall, it has 750,000 shares traded per day. That's average, but we're already a couple hours into this morning and it's only 34,000 shares. That's kind of giving me a little bit of a pause to begin with. So that's a first warning. And then other than that, yeah, it looks like they're trying to pick themselves up off the floor. And so keep an eye on it. You've gone from being underneath the moving averages to over the moving averages. So yeah, keep an eye on it. But this thing's got to really kind of prove itself. It looks like there was some sort of volume event that happened a few weeks ago. But yeah, I see what you're seeing. That volume stuff kind of gives me a little bit of pause. But if you want to trade it, if that volume actually ends up being okay, this still looks a little weird. Just looking at the volume profile down here, looks a little bit weird. But I see the kind of 50, 250 right there. I see what's going on. So if you want to trade it, I give it a shot. But I just be careful about this one. There might be something better out there. And then FSR, Fisker. Kind of the same thing. We talked about this with some of the electric cars. The whole market has just been dead for a while, which is good to know. That's the thing you need to understand about the market is either it has seasons or has moments in time that are really good. And we basically came off of a real May, June, July, which is a little bit rare because usually the market doesn't really run like that during the summer, but it decided to. And everything got overly bullish. You guys have to remember that the internals, we just got slammed to the upside. Everything was super bullish. It was a great couple of months. But what happens when like that? One, the market needs to rest. Like I'll show you. Yeah, you come look at this. That was a great run. Look at that. That was a great run. And we even, right through here, we even consolidated through the debt ceiling. And you have to remember that, look at that consolidation. We could be doing the same thing here. This one just kind of feels a little bit rougher because things aren't doing anything for a while. The interesting thing during this one, back in April and May, when the whole debt ceiling situation was going on, even though the market, the indices were basically doing fine, underneath the surface, things kept declining. And so it looked like the internals were going to bring the market down. But what was happening were the internals and the rest of the market was moving down, kind of just in limbo, waiting for the market to finally pick a direction, or I guess waiting for the um, debt ceiling crisis to get resolved, which it did. And then what you saw was underneath the surface, everything then spiked and carried the whole market with it, right and through here. And then it got overbought, really overbought. We had 89% of names over their 50-day SMA. That's really up there. Doesn't really get much further than 90%. So, and then everything just needed to kind of recycle and come back down and start again. And now we're watching this just hang out and not do much. Same thing with the internals. The number of stocks over their 50-day SMA have been hovering around 30%. Of course, they can go lower, but they've been hanging at 30%. And then we look at the put call ratio, and the put call ratio is up around 1. And so I think that we at least we have the right ingredients for the mark to go higher because everything has been cycled back down. Now we just need to wait for a catalyst. Maybe it's going to be FOMC today. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be something else. Or maybe this kind of just stays dead and kind of waffly and doesn't do much for a while. And that's fine. You need to understand the market condition of what's going on out there so that you don't keep trying to trade the same way when the market's ripping like this. That's the thing. You just need to be able to understand what's going on with the market and how it feels. Okay. You're not going to trade the same here as you are here. And if you do, you're going to lose your money. Because things aren't going to work. You're just going to be trying to same old thing. Like, what's the definition of insanity, right? You do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, the market is different May, June, July than it is here in September, and you need to account for that. You need to adjust. So yeah, Fuller, or sorry, Fisker, same thing. Really, just not doing much, sideways stuff, all that. And then, for you were mentioning Lyft. Same thing. Lyft's not doing much. Uber was the better one. You look at Uber, hey, good trade, decent move. But again, needs to take a break. If we look what's happening right now, notice we have a double top. And notice that the price is over the 50 while the Moxie indicator is below 0. Yes, we got things pulled back in August. Some names bounced, only a few. And after that, there really hasn't been much to work with. So we're kind of in a holding pattern. Maybe this thing can turn back up. Sure, maybe. But we're going to have to see the whole market do that. We're going to have to just wait for the market to actually give us a green light to where things are going to be going. So, and then brighter side, you have about XOP. So as far as your gush and drip, drip is to the leverage one to the downside. So if you were able to catch that top that I was talking about, you could have caught drip for a little bit. But overall, I'd be careful with drip because I kind of think that XOP and oil in the energy stock are generally in an in an uptrend. They're generally in an uptrend, and we're just watching a pullback. Now, maybe it's going to be a long-term back, like the market has been doing, but I still think it's in an uptrend, just doing a pullback. All right, so there you go. Hopefully that answered you. Yeah, top spin. Let's see. Yeah, good morning. Daily swing watch list. Base. That one, I've had that on my list for a while. I think you might have mentioned it. It had a move on earnings, and I don't really like to trade earnings, and there really hasn't been anything since then. You can look how overbought that thing got, and it just wasn't in the market environment to be able to sustain a gap up and go, like a viable gap up. This isn't the market for that. You can see it jumped up earnings, and then the market's just blah, and so it's like, we're going to sell into it. So again, kind of going back to the theme of the market, you need to understand what is the theme of the market, what's the appetite of the market, and that way, if you were in this and you decided to roll the dice on earnings and it worked out for you to the long side, you need to understand this and then probably take all your profit off right there, because you could see this was a vertical move to the upside. It got really overbought. It got outside all of the parameters, and the market, it does not have the appetite to sustain something like that to keep going. Okay, so the better you can understand the overall theme or season of the market, the better you can understand if this is going to be something you should hang on to or not. So that's what I would say there. And then as far as the this thing pulling back, sure, it's generally trying to be in an uptrend. Look at the monthly and weekly. Yeah, I'd give it that. But we have to figure out when. And timing is important. You can't just say, oh, I think this thing is going to go up, and you buy it here, and it just kind of keeps whiffling down here, and maybe 3 months from now it starts to go up. That's not going to do you any good, especially if you're trading options. So what we need to do is just realize that the market hasn't done anything yet. You need to let this thing keep coming down, and then you just need to let the market and this particular tick tell you when it's ready to go up, and we're just not getting those signals. In fact, the Moxie indicator keeps trending down. Price is still below the hourly 50. The daily chart looks decent, but that doesn't really mean anything yet. So we just have to be patient with this and just wait. For example, if you look here, you see how this was just drifting down, drifting down, drifting down. That's basically what it's doing now. What you want to wait for is this. See the Moxie price trigger? See when price gets over the moving averages? That's what you're looking for, that change. And we don't have that change yet. So we just have to be patient and wait and look for that change and that trigger. Let's see, CAE. Looking through here. This is kind of mixed. So I kind of gone nowhere for a long time. It's a possibility, but it just does like it's too wild. Also, keep in mind there's a large price congestion right there, and if you look, you're right at the bottom of it. So what's likely to happen? You see it got rejected, got rejected, got rejected. So number one, the likelihood it's going to get rejected is still pretty good. The next thing after that is it might get rejected, and maybe if it's going to go, it probably needs to do a pullback and try and get some more steam. Because you see how this move occurred from basically a pullback into support. So the next move, in order to get into and penetrate this price area, probably is going to have to do some sort of pullback to get momentum in order to go, if it's going to go. So that's my initial read on that. Here, look here. Yeah, I'm just kind of starting to see instability. You see this gap here between price and the daily 50? It's kind of the first thing that my eye goes to, because you see this gap and you see this gap. Yeah, price doesn't like to wait from the moving averages for too long. I'm also noticing that the Moxie indicator is kind of, in the lower area of its range, despite price trying to move up. So I'm not sure. If you're long already, hey, maybe that's going to work. Make sure this thing starts to break down. But I would not initiate a long right here. I would wait for some sort of opportunity. And that opportunity would basically be a pullback into support, just like we saw back here. So I think that one might want to wait a little bit. SMAR Smart Cheats, man, I have watched stock for years. 4 years. You can see I even have marks going back here, back to 2019. And it's never really been a good behaved stock for me. You could say that, yes, it was in an uptrend, but it is just, if you really look at the moves, it is all over the place, all over the place. So I eventually just kind of took this thing off my watch list. Just the personality of the stock. And, top spin, that's another thing as we talk about the theme or tide of the market and where it's going. There are some stocks that work well. There are some stocks that don't, and there are some stocks that work well with you and versus other traders. Maybe some people love this because they can trade it back and forth and it just works for them in their style. For me, in my style, this really doesn't work. And I learned that long ago, and I have really never traded this name. And I think I kind of want to say it's doing the same thing because, look at this. It's really just been back and forth this whole time. Look how flat this thing has been. So unless this thing suddenly comes alive and really starts to get into gearing, even its past life when it was still generally in an uptrend, I didn't like it. Look how much this thing goes above and below the 10 SMA. It's kind of untradeable for me. So yeah, it just doesn't resonate with me. If it resonates with you, and I see what's going on, there's your Moxie price trigger. Not quite a trampoline move here on the hourly chart, but if you can get something like this works, maybe you can trade it up and down from the lower 38 yard, upper, lower to upper, lower to upper. Hey, some people will make a killing doing that. You just need to understand the character and the personality of this particular stock. All right. All right. CCJ, I was just talking about this with the Corleone report. They're kind of a radio broadcast up in Canada. Yeah, you're for a year at about 23. Boy, that's some patience. Here's where I should target to sell. Honestly, I'd be a fan of probably taking some off now. You've held on to this thing for so long, and it's finally starting to work out and pay off. I personally would take a little bit off. I think it is great to, because you can see it's had a really solid move. And we're starting to get to an area where price tends to pull back. You see how it gets up here around that 30 ATR and pulls back? So just to be safe and be prudent, and so however big a size you have, some off. I don't know if that means 5% or 30% for you, but count them in. You've waited this long. It's been a great trade. And you know what? When things move up like this, yeah, they go up. They have to take a break. They usually take a rest, and there's usually going to be a pullback. So take a little bit off. And that way, if it does, or when it does pull back, you're feeling okay about it because you already cashed some in. And if it does pull back to support, and then it starts to go again, you can always add some back in. You know, that's the whole job of what we do here is to make money. The way you make money is you cash in green tickets. You recycle that money back into something else. You figure out the risk to reward ratio. This was a low risk. This is a higher risk. Okay, it's had a really good move for several weeks, months, and this you won, right? You've been in this for a year at around 23. It's up here at 39. You won. Take your winning lotto ticket and cash. It's just a good idea because you're going to be really pissed if you think, okay, I'm going to hang on to this whole thing, and then it comes down. You're like, I'm still getting on to it, and it starts to come down. You're like, well, maybe it's going to come back, and then it comes down like this, and next thing you know, you're back to where you began. Okay, that is the human psychology of what happens. But if you're prudent and you take some off like this, and it comes back down here, well, now you have a clear mind, so that if it does start to come back up, you can add more. Okay, just give yourself a gift. Keep your mind clear. Say, I won. That was a great. Pat yourself on the back and go do it again. And you know what? Even if this thing keeps going to 44 from here, fine. You still have some on. And the whole point is that you got a trade that went from 23 to 39. You won. You know? You don't need to catch everything. You just don't need to catch everything. So that was a great trade. Top spin. I'll take a look at the sector real quick, and then I'm going to get going. Today's kind of a busy day for me as far as being on the mic too. XLV. I don't see anything. Do you see anything? I don't see anything. You know, maybe you do what Mike Bodway did, and you can be in this for a year. So when it finally starts to move, you got it. But yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah, nothing's there. It's just sideways. But maybe that works as far as iron condors. Maybe you can do iron condors all the time. PIR. No, that's PIR is trying. But again, it just hit that third ATR. Maybe let it come down a little bit. You know, probably right this moment is not the best place to initiate a long. Wait for a signal. Let it come back down a little bit, see what it can do. ICPT. I don't know how old you are or anything, but ICPT kind of reminds me of ICP, Insane Clown Posse. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Was that your era? Are you close to my age and growing up around Insane Clown Posse? Yeah, an ICPT, nope, I don't see anything here either. You know, it's just, nope, nothing there. Nothing there. And then what, HOLI? A little bit better. Nick, maybe you? Do you know ICP? If not, maybe you guys go look it up on YouTube or Spotify. I will be prepared. Insane Clown. You kind of, that name is kind of giving you a clue, okay? So just be prepared. Oh man. Yeah, okay, so Holly's a little bit better, but we kind of talk back. Yeah, I know it's very, very long ago. 90s for sure, 90s. Yeah, they were simple. Yeah, mom did the grocery shopping. That's what. Holly, this kind of goes back to MAR. This is not a characteristic of a stock that I enjoy. You look back at its behavior, and you better be prepared for that behavior to continue going forward. So you can trade it, sure, but look at this thing. As much as it goes up, it comes down, and as much as it goes up, it comes down, and up and then down, up and then down. So if you're going to do this, just realize it. Just realize it. Okay. So no, it's for me. That's not really working. Not very comfortable. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Remember, if you guys are new to me, I see quite a few balls over on Facebook and YouTube out there. So, I enjoy helping you guys out, giving you some market direction, telling you where I'm seeing some stuff. That's the whole point. And we've been doing pretty well in the Moxie room. I've given calls with Apple, Tesla, XOP, and telling people where to go and where to generally how to look at the market. So if you guys are interested, come on over, simplertrading.com. You guys can get direct access to me. I'm always in the chat room, and I think I'll be changing up a little bit. We might be doing a little bit more live sessions, just kind of like the live Q&A. I can help you out there. And other than that, I'll see you around. Enjoy FOMC, and we'll see what kind of craziness happens. All right, guys.